Welcome to Beyond Co-Sell. This is a show where we get into what actually drives success in the AWS ecosystem. No fluff, no partner speak, just honest conversations with the people who've built it, broken it, and figured out what works.
I read the book E-Myth by Michael Gerber years ago. And the E-Myth is the entrepreneurial myth. But that book resonated really well with me. I'm a systems process thinker, but whoa, that mapped it back to a business and the crux of the story. And it was a great book, and storytelling is very easy to read and learn. But it was just that. It's like, hey, I'm doing this job, but if I want to build a business, I want to be an entrepreneur. The truth is, I need to go do the job, master the job, document the job, figure it out. My favorite business in the world is, in many ways, is McDonald's. I'm not saying I eat their food even very often, but think of that business. It is a systematic operational excellence, timing. And then they've taken technology and even down to making a French fry, where they buy and source the potatoes, how they're brought to the store, what oil they cook them in, how long it's cooked, how they salt them. Over time, these were people and process. Now, machines and timers. Even if you notice, if they tilt a salt shaker, exactly the amount of salt comes out of that salt shaker. They've eliminated all the variation in making a French fry consistently in the UK, the US, and Dubai.
Yep, very true.
So I think about that, and I used to study them and Southwest Airlines and companies that had that operational excellence. I studied them in business school because I was just really curious, but my brain, things like the E-Myth and that putting together, now it's like, okay, I'm going to do this job, but how am I going to take cues from excellence and multi-billion-dollar corporations and how they operate and apply it to my little job?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so what I saw, AWS has two separate quality scores now running in parallel. So we've got the opportunity quality score in ACE, and you talked about this on this channel, that the one you never got above 40. There are a few.
I've gotten a 50 now.
Oh, I'm gonna do one with a.
There's even higher. I think we're.
Yeah, I'm
if
gonna
I
do
care,
one with
yeah.
75, and we're gonna do one
Okay.
next week. So we'll get
Yeah.
a little bit of hints and tips. But there's now a brand new listing quality score, basics and excellent. So
Yeah.
have you run Kong's
I did.
listing through this?
I did. I ran it through yesterday and it came up with basic, which I
Oh,
could have told you just by
congratulations.
looking at it, but I think Lisa called it a participation trophy. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's great. And actually, I mean, the team that was presenting to us, I had already engaged with them. I already asked for Kong to be part of the beta processes for that because, I like tinkering with their latest and greatest, but also giving them feedback because I think it helps me, it helps the community. It's selfish and altruistic in many ways, but if I'm building something, the most important customer to me is the one that actually has a strong positive or a strong negative opinion. So I usually just think about that when a team comes to me and they're like, hey, would you want to try? But I did run it, it came back basic. And then I was going to do it anyway, but they're like, cool, ask it how to help and then score it again. And I will do that. But you and I have a laundry list of 50 things I have to go do, including my executive offsite next week. It's going to get on the list. Where it sits on the top 3 or 5, I don't know. But the good news is that scoring was always what we talked about in the head. It wasn't well documented. And even if you went to the service team that built Marketplace and you asked them about search engine optimization, could you look at my thing and give me some recommendations? It was still a little bit of an enigma. It wasn't exactly well documented, or they could tell you things I knew this. We all if you hit the right keywords or the tags in the back, that would help. If you had a video to your attached listing, it would do better. If you were, again, built on AWS, you could guess all of that stuff, but what words, what answers do people have? I think that's where they're getting better. So it did make a bunch of recommendations.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I will implement those. I actually need to touch our listings anyway. One of the things we never really talk about is who handle listing management over time. In this company, usually it's my product marketing team or my marketing team. No one owns that stuff. So I was like, oh, I guess I do. By the way, I went to our 3 listings and I was like, the EULA in all of these is different. And I was like, okay, I got to fix that. So I go straight to my legal team and I was like, hey, I need the latest one. Actually, I'm going to do it this way, but like, is this right, wrong? And then I was like, okay, I already know I need to edit mode, update the EULA in the 3 listings we have, which is our PLG listing, our SaaS listing, and our enterprise like AMI listing. So I really do have 3 listings, but they serve 3 different things. But I was like, no, these need to be consistent. So then I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to rip these things open, now's maybe a good time. What's the score? Oh, basic. Oh, no, it's not good. Okay, maybe I should like spend a few minutes and tweak it a little bit while I've got it in edit mode, so that while I push it back into production, it's something it's a little bit better than it was. I understand the function and the process of an MCP.
Yeah,
Kong builds them. I hope I understand what we do with customers and our own technology. As it pertains to AWS, I understand what their MCP gateway's doing, what their agents are doing. I'm not using it. It actually is something that I would love to take more advantage of these new services that they're using. The problem is to use them, you have to be fairly technical. This is the funny thing about, I mean, not to get into a huge conversation about AI, I think AI has made me better, faster, and more efficient with my time. And you and I have talked about stuff. It has allowed me to be, I'm not a developer, so not a 10x developer, but like an alliance, it's 10x and my team for sure. There yet. Enough time or interest, and I had enough time to troubleshoot, curate, tweak, tune. I could absolutely go into Claude Code or something and build an application, or go to other app builders and build something with the assistance of AI. But you're building bespoke applications to make this stuff all work. And I don't even know if the data's right. Look, I did a deal last week, and I was like, this isn't showing up like I expected this was a marketplace promotion.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, I'm expecting to see something in this application that I don't see. I wonder if it's timing, which it could be, and it was, or is it something else? So I went to the agent. I said, hey, can you evaluate this deal for pop? And it's like, oh, this deal doesn't qualify. And I was like, oh, dang. So now I'm thinking, do I need to escalate this? What do I need to do differently? It turns out I waited an hour. Then what I expected to happen happened, and everything went through, and it's literally already been funded. So the agent was wrong.
Right.
My point was the agent was wrong. So I don't use this very often, but if I use it once and it's wrong, and I wasn't sure at the time, but now it's validated that it was wrong, how much credibility am I going to give in that data? And then am I really going to want to build, a whole custom apparatus around the use or the interpretation of that data answer factory? And it's okay, but I think I use this to help me determine what I should do with my own experience. Because you and I have a lot of experience, I know the answers. I'm using AI like as a coaching mechanism or speeding me up with some basic things, but I'm almost always having to put my experience over the top of it.
Last question, because we've been going for a little bit, but so I don't know whether you're in the room for this one, but they were talking about building a journey agent that gives every single partner, even the ones without the PDM, basically generating a business plan. I touched on it before, but also looking at things like 6 pages, showing where you need to chase your specialization to get your MDF and so on.
Yeah.
You wrote your 6-page by hand, right? For your H2 conversation with your CRO. How much would you trust that agent? And does that actually make your job easier?
It's just another signal. Like, I would love to see what AWS thinks we should do. The truth is, we spend most of our time. I've been using the word bilingual a lot. I speak a little Amazonian. I speak a little Kong. And like most of what I'm doing is translating the 2 conversations at some level. When it gets really deep in the technology, what's really hard is go find an expert in AWS services and APIs and technology and in Kong. It gets really hard to find those bilingual folks. And I think through like, wow, the more people I build in my company and their company that actually can speak both languages, I think that's actually how I'm measuring value. That's the value. That's what success looks like. But I would say the part that's really hard, I understand it. The part that's really hard is these are two selfish entities
Yeah.
that care about their own revenue. And so when I look at that thing that you said, it's going to tell me all the answer that benefits them for what they want and expect me to do. And all of this stuff is simply a return on value. We've talked about this since the beginning. So if I go do every competency, every co-build, submit every ACE, run 100% of my marketplace transactions through the AWS Marketplace, what do I get in return?
Yeah.
And that you're never going to find someone that says, if you do this, I will give you that. But there are, I'll finish this, but underneath the covers of a competency or a SCA, even a PPA, there are give and gets. And my opinion is that's kind of where that exchange of value is. The problem is what a company really wants and what these give and gets are, they're not the same. They're in two different languages, and the translation, that word doesn't translate exactly. What the ISV wants is source business from AWS. What the CSP, what AWS wants is a bunch of other stuff, but they don't do that. I mean, they do, but let's just be honest. They don't do that. So there's a word that you're trying to translate, and the word has two different meanings. And so there's just going to be a misalignment. So I like all the tools, I like all the AI stuff, but you almost never can take something directly from this source and like give it to your business and it's gonna make any sense or it's gonna translate. And that's really what I find us doing a lot is just this is what they care about and what they talk about. This is what we care about and what we talk about. And in here in the middle are kind of the things that we can find common ground or what when we do this is what they mean over there, and this is the harmony between the two.
And so
it actually goes back very simple 5 C's. Like I talk about that, it becomes my strategy, it becomes my talking point, it becomes almost everything else because each one of those C's, which I don't think I've said here, but it's public: co-build, co-market, co-sell. Actually, in that order, but we usually flip them and start with co-sell, co-market, co-build. But I bookended those two things with consumption, which is also drag and other things, and champions, friends helping friends. So those are the 5. The 6th, I know what it is. I'll talk about it later, but that's it. So like, what am I doing here? What's my strategy? Oh, that's the strategy.
So I raised a point, I don't know whether you're still on the call, to Jen, that sales doesn't care about the technical integrations. They care about tangible benefits. And so I was saying, if AWS wants partners to actually plug into the MCP server, CRM integrations, they should actually be looking to reward behavior, not just the plumbing. And that sort of plugs into what we've said, being coin operated, commission drives behavior. I guess my question to you is, if AWS gave you a small funding kicker for having Kong's CRM properly wired into their agent ecosystem, is that something you would actually consider, or just ignore?
So the answer is I always consider everything they do, especially if it's got funding attached to it. However, we go through a journey where I may be able to want to do something, but not be capable of doing it. And then I sometimes have more capacity and I'd be like, dude, I'll co-build to everything just to see if it works or not, or just to check the box, or, well, what do you think makes a top AWS partner? It's a metric that's undefined called leaned in. Well, what does that mean? Well, if I just built to your things and I co-build with you and co-innovate with you and you come to me first for new partner things, like that's actually, remember, I call business partnerships personal best friend relationships, into the same stuff, trust, feedback, all that stuff. So it's all part of the game. I try to integrate as much. I'm always curious, but I do try to integrate as much. But if you said, hey, can you go do this today? It's hard for me because I don't really have the technical capacity, and the folks here with that technical capacity, I could ask them to do this. I actually don't want to, because I want them focused on 2 or 3 other things that I think are higher value. That's the balance. That's the decision that we kind of get to make. Yeah. Right. And then over time, I build a bigger army around me. They may report to me, they may be in other parts of the business, but they see me as a customer. And, and then sometimes I have my own technical resources, or the skill set required to do so gets lower and lower. And then it's like, oh, cool, I could like hack this thing up on the weekend. Now, should you share all that stuff? I don't know. That's a whole different conversation.
That's a legal conversation, right?
Sure. But what is it that you're really sharing? Like most of these agents, but you're not training their agents. You're
No, so
just consuming data and enhancing your own. So
it was more around the dashboard. So they were actually had an agent that gave you not only your transactions and detailed breakdown of your transactions, but then also where were you on the journey. So
yeah,
in terms of your AWS journey,
yeah,
it was a great, I think,
yeah,
management C-level dashboard. And my point
yeah.
was,
That's great.
yeah, but C-level doesn't want to have a look at another dashboard. So what you need to do is actually try and integrate that into an ISV dashboard so a C-level can see it as part of their go-to-market strategy, see it as part of their distribution partner strategy, so they can go, oh yes, out of our partner ecosystem, this is what's
That is
of that, and then double down into that. So that's how I would see it. And I was just saying, I, as a C-level, am not going to go into another dashboard to drill down into data. I want a summary of that data in whatever tool I'm using.
so
That's
that's an MCP or an agent. I mean, that's
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 exactly what.
facility to
Yeah,
go.
yeah. But it was
But
instead of the
that's
response. Yeah, but the response I got was, well, there is a technical integration. I'm like, yeah, it's great having a technical integration, but if you're really trying to drive behavior, that marketplace becomes part of that operational cadence, that go-to-market cadence and strategy, then if you made it, if you incentivized it, then it becomes, oh, that's a really easy checkbox. And you can go, right, okay, part of my partner strategy, just bring that in. Oh, why is AWS not looking too good? Oh, okay. Or why is it actually, wow, the win rate is really improving. Who's responsible for that? Michael. That's, blah, blah, blah. So it's just sort of bringing that data in to a mainstream C-level dashboard. We talk about champions, and I
yeah.
still think our champions within the internal partnerships, the AWS partners, the ISVs, those champions C-level still don't understand what marketplace is. So how do you close the gap? How do you show the value? And there has to be a connection there. And AWS has to be thinking like that, in my opinion, anyway. How do you communicate? How do you show the wins? How do you show the value? And not just make it available technically. I'll come off my soapbox now.
You're right. The problem is it goes back to what I said. You got two people from two countries speaking two languages,
Exactly.
and they're not bilingual, and they'll never learn our language. So this
That's,
is the part
yeah.
where
So you need a translator. But if someone says, hey, there
it's
is a
different though.
translator over there.
Those same set of metrics translate differently at all the three companies that I've worked with and the hundreds that you and I talk to. They don't translate one to one. The win rate number that I threw out, I had never really tracked that like this at other companies. It wasn't the North Star metric that I was going to go after. Even go back to the Forrester research paper on Marketplace or whatever, like that's the greatest hits. It's like the Beatles did all these songs and all these albums and you put together a greatest hits. Like that's what that thing is. My metrics didn't always follow those metrics, but turns out like some of them are true, not all. So I picked the one or two that are true, and then I just continuously drumbeat those things. But you are mapping your metric to their thing, and you're kind of tying those two together. And like most things, there's not a lot of appetite to, hey, here's the 20 things I have to go to, or the 20 priorities, or the it's not a number, but it's a few. I like three and maybe four.
Yeah.